Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with SpeakEasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. It is end of June. We're at episode 36. I cannot believe how fast this year is going, but we are back at it after I was off last week. I was out of town, and I am ready for an awesome summer of guests. And today we have a local guest from the area that I live in, and cannot wait to have her on. We've been talking for quite some time, so Dr. Angela Crawford, welcome to SpeakEasy HR.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here. And I know you and I share such a passion for people and HR and what we're doing out there in the workplace to help one another. And I will say here locally, I know you're excited because we actually had a nice summer weekend too. So
It was hot. It was hot. It's summer, and I got a new toy for the summer celebration, so play that a little bit here and there. But yes, it is summer. If you are on vacation, obviously appreciate everyone being a part of this episode. And I know some did sign up to watch it live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you are watching live, the comment section is open. Feel free to ask questions along the way. But for those who are new to SpeakEasy HR, welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is David Noe. I started this almost a year ago now. So July, we have a lot of fun, exciting guests that will bring a lot of laughs. Cannot wait for those. And it's just been a really fun last year of doing this and meeting people and talking to them about day-to-day hard topics, easy topics, and just getting to connect with people like Dr. Crawford. So SpeakEasyHR.com is where you can find all previous episodes. You can find the blog. I'm doing a weekly blog, word of the week. This week is inspiration. So if you need a little inspiration in your life or know somebody, go out to the word of the week blog and find that. So we have a few things to get to before we get to the actual topic that you are bringing today. So we have the world famous envelope icebreaker game to play that I know everybody that has been on before has enjoyed this. It's just a fun icebreaker game to get to know the guest a little bit more. So want to hear about your background a little bit and understand what you have done up to this point. So for those who are not familiar with the envelope icebreaker game, we have 15 envelopes. They all have a number 1 through 15. So while this is quickly playing to transition to this part, Dr. Crawford, if you would like to pick a number 1 through 15, you get to figure out what's in that envelope. So think about it, and I'll give you a few seconds to decide.
Okay, I'm going to go with envelope number 7 because I love 7.
Number 7.
Yes. Let's see what we have.
All right. Number 7 envelope icebreaker game is, when you were in grade school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was in grade school. Good question. I wanted to be a writer when I was in grade school.
How about that?
If you read my book at all, you'll hear that I struggled a lot in grade school. So there were probably times when people thought, is this girl actually going to make it to high school? But yeah, one of my teachers, she said, I wrote an essay. I remember she said, you are a really good writer. And it was one of the first times I actually heard, a positive about something because I struggled in so many subjects. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going with that. I'm going to be a writer.
That's awesome. Well, I know a lot of people are not doing what they said they were going to be doing in grade school. And I'm one of them. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I am nowhere near a marine biologist. So then I want to be a professional golfer, and that didn't happen. So
I wanted to be a ballerina at one point, and then that didn't happen either. So there are lots of those dreams, David, that we kind of push forward, right? I wanted to be a ballerina at one point, writer, an attorney. I mean, the list goes on, right?
Yeah. Well,
marine biologist. Do you still get to see a lot of
Uh,
See you
I,
recently.
no, I did a lot of fishing growing up, and I still do here and there. So I used to enjoy just going out to the lake. Grew up on Lake Erie, went fishing, and go to Florida, go fishing on the beach, and so I just enjoyed fishing, catching new fish, sharks. I was really fascinated by sharks, and so yeah, I was like, well, somebody's got to do a job when it comes to like animals, marine life, but yeah, so maybe sometime in the future I can do that again, but probably not. But
We're going to have multiple careers. That's the key, right?
that's right.
We're going to have many different careers, many different seasons. You never
That's right.
know.
That's right. So we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. It is episode 36 of SpeakEasy HR. I can't believe that. I'm going to give you one more number so we can take out 7. So what other number would you like?
Let's go with 15.
15. All right, I like it. There's still some that no one has even picked yet, so I might have to switch them up for the next year of episodes. All right, this is a good one. What is your favorite band growing up?
Oh, goodness. My favorite band. There were so many. Actually, I liked Rush.
Rush. Okay.
Yeah, I liked Rush. I went to the concert. They were great performers. So, but I really loved all kinds of music. I was a little bit of an anomaly with my music taste. I would like everything from Tanya Tucker to Rush to I went to an Iron Maiden concert, which nobody would ever guessed I had done that. Like I just love music. Michael Jackson, I mean, you name it. I just have loved it. What about you?
What was your favorite concert you've gone to?
I would say Garth Brooks. I went
Garth
to that not
Brooks.
too long
Okay.
ago. Absolutely
Okay.
love him. I saw him for the first time. I remember I was at a fair in Dayton before he was really big. And it was like a little country fair. And he was there. And I stood out in the rain and watched him. And oh my goodness, I heard the dance. I almost had tears in my eyes. I was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it was a really small venue. And then, of course, my husband, a couple years ago, he took me to another concert. And of course, it was a huge venue, but that was my favorite.
Yeah.
How about you?
I've went to a lot of concerts growing up. I haven't gone to as many, but growing up in Michigan, there were some venues that I went to. And so I mean, I saw Fleetwood Mac back when I didn't really appreciate Fleetwood Mac back in the day. My dad got tickets and my sister and I went, but I mean, Beastie Boys, Eminem. I mean, I've been to a lot of different genres of music and a lot of rap, but yeah, country's great. I mean, I've been to some good country music concerts, and Tyler Childers is one of my new favorites. Still, for last few years, I've gotten to see him a couple times. So
it's amazing. How many different types of music? I mean, that can really and inspiration. That's your word this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it does inspire you when you hear different types. I mean, I listen to all different types. Jelly Roll. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks for playing that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It wasn't too difficult. Questions were pretty easy. So just like everybody else, Dr. Crawford, when I talk to people about coming on SpeakEasy HR, I really try to find something that they are passionate about bringing to the podcast. And so when you had talked about some of the things you've been working on, and you obviously have written a book that we'll get into, but you brought this topic, and I was really fascinated by it. I didn't know what it meant, but the Superpower Pyramid, I was kind of like, okay, this is not something I've heard of before. And so I loved it that you had brought this to the show. So if you want to just kind of explain a little bit about your background and kind of what led you to do this kind of work. I know you've worked, in a local college. You've done some work with the education part, but yeah, go back as far as you want, but just kind of bring people up to speed on where you've been.
Yeah, I went to the University of Cincinnati, so Bearcat, and then I was in banking for about 20 years. And I worked for Citibank and some other banks. And then I went into consulting and marketing. I was in operations, sales, you name it. And I'll tell you that I was also, then I started my PhD program. And I was just like looking out there, and I was seeing so many challenges with businesses.
Yeah.
And in your role, David, what are some key challenges that you see with smaller businesses, especially?
Oh, we would have a long conversation. Where do we
Okay,
begin?
let's name a
Where do
couple.
we begin?
I'll tell you if
Technology.
oh
We'll
yeah.
start there. Technology
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
manage a business and pay people. How about that?
Yeah, all kinds. So I was, like I said, I was in banking for many years, and then I was
Yeah.
with another company where I was in marketing and strategy, and I was traveling all over the world, and I kept seeing frontline team members, which was, I was in contact centers, so I was customer service, contact centers, and I
Yeah.
kept seeing these employees, and they would sit in the same call center with somebody else. One person I would interview, and they would say, "This is the best job I've ever had." The next person sitting right next to them, held accountable for the same things, would say, "This is prison and I hate it." And I could not figure out what was going on. I thought, there's no other place where all the variables are basically the same. One person loves job, one person hates it.
Yeah.
So I was in my second year of my doctorate program. My company went through a major downsizing, and we had a lot of people in marketing, and then my position was ultimately eliminated. And I thought to myself, there's so many things I want to do, because I was in operations, sales, marketing, consulting. I was all over the world traveling. And I said, you know what? I'm going out on my own. I'm going to be a consultant. And I'm also going to continue my PhD, which I did. And so it was funny, because I called up somebody, that a CEO of a company I worked for, and I said, "Hey, you need a consultant." And he was like, "Do I?" And I said, "Yes, and I'm going to be it." He said, "Okay." So he hired me to work with his clients to help them on customer experience.
Yeah.
And so the way this all kind of came about was that I opened my business in 2013, and I continued my PhD studies, and I helped strategy. I helped in marketing, customer experience. I was a fractional CMO for a company for a little while, and I was a researcher. And so I did all these different things while I had my business. And then when I graduated with my doctorate, um, as I was with my studies there, I'd studied across 23 countries what ignites passion within people for work. And that was my dissertation, was frontline employee passion. And so I'd gone back all the way to the great philosophers, and I'd studied what motivates people, not externally, because in those environments where the jobs are exactly the same, it was not external influences that was motivating people, because that was the same.
Right.
It had to be something internal. And so I studied that, and I developed a scale and measured it and did some things with that, like I said, across 23 countries, and ultimately came up with this concept called frontline employee passion. Worked with some other great researchers, ultimately after a number of years had it published. Well, within that time, I went to the university, and I taught strategy, innovation, marketing, leadership, MBA, and undergrad levels. And then they needed a dean at the local university. So I took on that role for 2 years. And I was still teaching as well. And then I moved into the VP of Adult and Graduate Education, where I also taught and designed curriculum as well for adults in a variety of different settings. And it was fascinating to me where everything kind of came together. And this is what I mean when you and I are talking about how I thought I was going to be a ballerina or a writer. You thought, you're going to
Right.
be a marine biologist. How does your career take all these twists and turns, and you reinvent yourself, and you just, you really start looking at things a little differently. And so during that time, like I said, I went into higher ed for 6 years. And then I decided to go back to my consulting, because I started to realize teaching strategy in the teaching it in higher ed. I was working with, MBA students from all industries, as well as when I had done it earlier in my practice, my consulting practice, there had to be something missing. And it was really leadership. And I
Yeah.
said to myself, I have to go and take all this learning that I've had over all this time, and I have to help people. I have to help them figure out a system or some way to where their strategies can actually come to fruition, because people were the challenge. Like,
Right.
we'd have this great strategy and we could not get it implemented because we had leadership problems. We didn't have the people in the right places. Clients didn't have all these things. So I left higher ed a couple years ago. I spent a year working on my book and developing a system and finally getting it published. So I don't really identify necessarily as a writer, but I got the book published. And it was because I'm so passionate about these smaller businesses who they really need leader development, and they really need these tools, but they don't have learning and development departments. They don't have all these resources that when I worked for Citibank, we had lots of resources. So what I did is develop an easy to follow system, wrote a book about it, and then added to my business consulting, executive coaching, and leadership development. So that's kind of how my career took some twists and turns. And honestly, like, how I ended up on your show today is because of all these twists and turns, and really my passion for helping people define success for themselves and actually achieve it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing all that. That's great. And just being able to publish a book, I think, is a huge accomplishment. So, can you go into the Superpower Pyramid, and how did that come to life? And is that after you wrote the book that you created that, correct?
Yes. And this is how I always, when I coach entrepreneurs, I always say, sometimes your best products show up later and you don't even plan on it.
Yep.
And that's what happened. So self-awareness is the first step in the system. And what I was doing is I was working with clients, and I use a lot of assessments, and I have my favorites.
Yeah.
And we would use the assessments, and then they would say, well, they would just kind of push off to the side. And I would say, how can I bring this to life? And a lot of people will tell you that they also work so much to fix their deficiencies, or they think they have to know everything as a leader. And so what I wanted to focus on is helping my clients really develop what are your 3 core superpowers.
Yep.
And that way you can build a team around you who can complement you. With an E, not an I. Like, you know what I mean? You want to have them complement you in what you do. So that's how the Superpower Pyramid came about. I had clients saying, wow, I love this. Wow, I love this. Can you do this for my boss? Can you do this for your team? And that's literally how it all came about, by people experience it, seeing the power of it, and wanting to share it with other people.
Yeah. So you described for me using the 4 assessments to come up with someone's superpower. So how did you choose those 4?
Yeah, people ask me all the time, what assessments, which ones have you taken, David? Do you know which assessments, self-assessments?
DISC, Strengths Finders. There's probably others that have come and gone, but those 2 come to mind for sure.
Yeah, and those are 2 on my list.
Yeah.
What I did is I looked at the ones that were most powerful for my clients.
Yep.
And I'll tell you a little story about DISC. So years ago, we did DISC, right? It was before Wiley introduced their circular workplace version, and it was the graphical one.
Yeah.
And a consultant came in. She came in, like I said, years ago when I was in corporate, and she did this session with our group and basically labeled everybody in a box and left. And then afterwards, it was horrible, because people said, well, you're a D, you're a C, you're an I. And it was just so unhelpful. So for years, anyone bring up the DISC and I would have a negative reaction. However, what I started doing is I found a new one, and it's this workplace that I use, started using it with clients, and it was transformational on relationship and personality style. And if I just wish, and that's the other reason I wrote my book, because a lot of this is, there are things I wish I would have known 20 years ago in my career. So DISC is the one that I use. It actually helps people figure out their personality style and how to communicate with others. I use Gallup Strengths Finders because I like that one because it tells you your talents. What do you bring to the table at work? And I like that one a lot. I use Via Character Strength. The
Okay.
reason I pulled that one in is because I hired a coach to help me determine whether or not I should go into make a career transition at one point. And she said, "Have you ever tried Via Character?" And I said, "No." So you've got DISC that'll help you with your personality styles and your communication style and help with conflict. You've got Gallup that'll tell your talents. Then you have VIA that will help you with well-being and joy at work. Because what I realized was strategic is my number one Gallup strength. I'm a strategist, no surprise, but I was not getting enough joy at my job.
Yeah.
And so she helped me discover that love of learning, curiosity, honesty, those are some of my top Via character strengths. And so she helped me discover that that's the well-being and the joy that I needed. And then Working Genius came out not too long ago, and that will tell you what part you should play on an intact team.
Okay.
And so I use those 4 assessments. The
Okay.
one thing about each of those is they all come with the positive, but they also come with an overuse situation.
Yeah.
Or in Working Genius, you have frustrations. So we have our balconies and our basements of each of those. So those are the 4 that I have used. Some of my clients like Enneagram, and I use Enneagram. If people do it, I'll talk to them about it. Predictive index, but those are the 4 that I use for the Power Pyramid because they work the best for this purpose.
Gotcha. Okay. So we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube with Dr. Angela Crawford talking about the Superpower Pyramid. So you did give me an overview visual that I was going to pull up, and this was something that you wanted to dive in a little bit more. So kind of walk us through this a little bit, if you can, and kind of explain this layout for us.
This is my book. So this is my book in a nutshell. This is the whole book and all the chapters in there. And it's funny with my book. So here's what happened. Love of learning being one of my top Via character strengths. This book was 320 pages. And I read it a couple Thanksgivings ago, and I was like, I don't want to read this book. It is so academic, and it's so boring, and it's so full of all the research.
Yeah.
I was like, I ripped that whole thing apart, literally from Thanksgiving until the February when I turned it into the final to the publisher. I ripped the entire book apart. And I said, just the facts, Jack. That's all you're getting. And I literally ripped it all apart, and I created the 7-step system. It was always organized in this fashion, but it had way too much information. I'll also say I got a little vulnerable in it. I told some stories I don't think my husband even knows about, but that's another topic. But I just turned it into this system because, and really at the core, it's self-awareness, understanding, communication, culture, expectations, engagement, and development. And then within each of those are subsections. So where the pyramid fits is really in the self-awareness piece of the puzzle. And you have to assess yourself, do the assessments, figure out yourself. How can you adapt to other people? You have to get feedback from other people and listen to it and reflect.
Right.
Understanding is really about knowing your role, the key stakeholders, the organization, fitting there. I put conflict in communication because I wanted to take the power out of it, because that's probably one of my number one workshops is conflict, whether it's crucial conversations or I have my own model of conflict resolution. That one fits there. And then I have another 8 C's of communication. These are things that I teach a lot of clients about how can you improve communication, and then naturally coaching. And so these are each of these sections, and I won't go through them all in detail. They all revolve around trust, because that's truly the foundation of leadership. That's truly a foundation of every relationship. And so this is pretty much the book in a nutshell. And the Superpower Pyramid is that self-awareness piece. And once you get that right, everything else just starts to flow in place.
Yeah. So what do people value most in the process of completing, the assessments and ultimately discovering their superpowers?
I think they value the way that they're learning that it's okay not to be perfect in
Yeah.
everything. I had
Yeah.
a woman last Friday. I do leader development for a local organization, and we have 50 leaders. We've had 50 leaders in the program. And I've been talking to them about what they got most from the program over the last couple of years. And she said that her biggest takeaway was knowing she doesn't have to be good at everything. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Because, and I think about her, she's, probably very early in her career. And I thought, gosh, what if I knew that?
Right?
Like, what if
Yeah.
I didn't kill myself trying to do everything, and what if I really learned early in my career that I could give other people a great gift and letting them use their superpowers
Yeah.
and letting them like give people the gift, give them that gift. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of us, especially as we move up the corporate ladder, we just forget. We assume that a lot of like the assessments that we've taken, oh, everybody took the disc, everybody's taken the Gallup, whatever, or the leadership lessons we've learned, everybody should know that. And
Yeah.
so a lot of the young people, they're just missing it. And
Oh yeah.
they just, so yeah, when I hear that, and I'll tell you the other thing that really, and the reason why I'm having this, it's starting out just as a women's group, but in July, which we can talk about in a little bit, but the value of developing with other people is huge.
Yeah.
I told this group on Friday I was getting their feedback on the sessions because everything I do is customized. It's all based on the individual and organizational need. And I said to them, I said, the content I provide you is only 50% of the
Yeah.
learning.
Yep.
And they get it. They're like, yeah, because all the learning that they get is the other 50% is the group of how they're interacting with other people, and they're talking about leadership challenges to their organization, what's going on. And it's weird because I learned this when I was teaching MBA students. Because what happened was we would have, and I taught at 2 different universities, and these MBA students, they were from the same organization. And when I did my MBA, we had everybody from different organizations. So first I was against this concept. I said, we shouldn't do this. I said, I learned the most from other people. So naturally, my bias is towards how it worked best for me. And oh my goodness, David, what I learned is that it was powerful.
Yeah.
They were learning leadership topics and different curriculum pieces. I was teaching in the strategy, innovation. I was teaching leadership. And then the physician, this was healthcare. So they were talking to the nurse who was talking to the billing person. And these are people who would never normally have conversation. And so in my consulting practice, now I'm in organizations where, somebody from the manufacturing floor, there's talking to somebody from HR who's talking to somebody from IT. Yep. And there might be, we're teaching a leadership topic, and we're learning about our superpowers, and we're learning about our assessments. But that is the other 50% of what these workshops are all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. I've gone through different workshops and programs within organizations I've been in, and it's all about how it can stick and be successful beyond the program.
Yeah.
And make it sustainable so that it does make an impact, because I think everyone wants to get better in their job. Well, a lot of people do. Manage better, lead better, learn and become more knowledgeable on their topic of in their industry, whatnot. But if it doesn't have a clear strategy around how to enforce it beyond the workshops, it's just never gonna So that's what I've seen, and it's probably what you see a lot is you do a disc assessment or you do a different assessment as part of the workshop, and then after that it's like how is it going after 6
Right.
months, a year? You go back in your own ways. So it takes several times to potentially make a change in some kind of behavior or skill set or rhythm within your job. So communication, I think, is as you brought up on that slide, it's something that I think as as some of the younger generations coming into the workforce, how they've communicated through education, you
Yeah.
know, virtually in Zoom conversations, not in person. They're fully engaged in a conversation in person. And so I think that to me in the future from a challenge a company's communication process of how they connect with their team, how a manager connects with their team, communication is going to be so important.
And it's so different. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I just posted on my LinkedIn a disc, how to give feedback based on different styles.
Yep.
And it's been shared, I don't know how many times, we've had
Yep.
tons of engagement on it because
Yep.
I have one woman, we were working on the pyramid, and she said, my boss keeps recognizing me in front of everyone. She needs to stop this. Doesn't she understand that my style is not, I don't want to receive public recognition?
Yep.
And so it's these types of things. And I've had other people, I mean, the multi-generational challenges are real. I mean, when I, got out of school, you kind of thought your manager said, so you did. And that's not the
Yep.
way the world works anymore. And
No.
we have this really great opportunity to learn how to adapt our styles and ourselves in, and it's amazing when you learn a lot about yourself,
Right.
you learn about other people, you can really create stronger relationships. You can actually reduce conflict, which ultimately for organizations, it's hard dollars. You can
Oh yeah.
improve your retention. I mean, think about it. Have you ever worked for I'm sure not today, but at some point in your career, have you ever worked for a manager who wasn't self-aware?
Yes. Yes.
And one who wouldn't adapt, and
Yep.
one who was just, you think about the organizational havoc, honestly, that they wreak on an organization because they're not self-aware. They aren't being adaptable. And I get excited. I know I talk a lot, but I get excited because these are not challenges that can be solved by AI. I mean, one of your guests,
Nope.
Tim Sackett, I
Yeah.
was listening to your podcast with him, and there's so much about our work can be solved by AI. Let's be real. These human connections and building stronger human connections and
Yep.
and working through these interpersonal challenges, we're not going to solve this with AI.
Nope. Definitely not. I was going to bring this back up. I didn't know if you had anything else to comment on. Let me see if I can move myself because I'm stuck on the side here. Trying to make it bigger for you. Was there anything else on this slide that
I
you wanted to bring up? I know we've talked about communication.
I think a mindset is important. I do a lot of work with people with their mindset and innovation and
Yeah.
strategy. Like I said, I'm a strategist. Um, Although I usually advise entrepreneurs to stick in one lane, I drive through three, which is business consulting, executive coaching, and leader development. I do it all because it's so connected. And so you can see you've got developing yourself, developing your strategy. And it's really important to learn to speak the language of the organization. And that's why it's all a circle. There's things about myself I will learn today. Probably after this podcast, I'll say, why didn't I do that better? Why didn't I do that better? Oh, this went well.
Yep.
Things like that.
Yep.
We learn something about ourselves and we learn about the people around us every single day. So it's a complete circle, but ultimately it's built on trust. And so that's why I developed it like this. And it's just, these are the 7 components that I see time and again that organizations and people need to work through from a leadership perspective to really bring it all together. And that's why I think that organizations even no matter what the size, you can have a program that is reasonable, and it can also just flow all together and reach your team members and bring them together, which is really important.
Yep, absolutely. So we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you have any questions that come to mind, someone else might be thinking the same question. So throw it in the chat. Would love to hear from anybody watching live out there on LinkedIn or YouTube. So, Dr. Crawford, how do people and organizations use the Superpower Pyramid that you've come up with? Can you give us maybe a real life example or a recent situation?
Yeah, it's usually about what it is it's about having each individual go through the assessments and then bringing the team together. And that's how we're using it.
Yeah.
So we're using it individually. Everyone learns about themselves. Then you come together as a team, and then you figure out where could there be friction. So then you go through each assessment as a team and say, there could be friction in this place, there could be friction in that place, but then how can we leverage everyone's superpowers? It's really funny. I have one client who, she's worked with this boss of hers for a number of years, and she could not figure out why they work so well together. And so I did her pyramid and his pyramid, and they were like this. You know, he's coming up with all the ideas, and she's making them happen. And he's doing this, and it was fascinating. And I think, and then it also tells you, it says how to work best with this person. So she literally gives it, she gave it to a new colleague, and she said, here you go. Here's my superpower pyramid. Here's how to work best with me. And I talked to him later, and he said, I made sure I took copious notes on how to best work with her, because I really want this relationship to be strong. And so they're using it like that, which I love, because for me, you know, if I can help one person have a better day at work, I feel like I'm living out my purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think leadership within every organization is going to be a little different. But at the end of the day, you probably see how they go through this process and how they use it to improve their organization. So from a leadership standpoint, you know, what are some of the things that you have seen get not fixed, but more maybe improved, or you know, where some organizations have been successful, you know, using the pyramid?
Yeah, I think it's mostly about, and a lot of them don't directly use the pyramid yet. They may use it with individuals, but they really embrace the Leaders Succeed Together system as a system.
Yeah.
So I would say the biggest pieces, and I get this consistent feedback, is their learning skills on self-awareness and how to navigate conflict and improve their coaching abilities. So these are leaders at all levels who are learning to be more self-aware, to adapt their style, to understand themselves, adapt to other people. They're learning how to reduce conflict, and they're also learning how to coach. Those are three things that if I had learned that way early in my career, I would be far ahead of having to endure a lot of challenges with those three areas. So I would say that those are the things that the Leaders Succeed Together system addresses very quickly. And then, like I said, it's very customizable. I had a client contact me. They're going through a merger and acquisition. So we started working on it. We did change leadership program for them. And we helped them figure out how could they deal with the change, and how could they best, you know, implement changes. I've done everything from redesign performance appraisal systems and rewards and recognition systems to all different types of things. But I think the overarching Leaders Succeed Together system, and where this pyramid really fits in, is to ultimately help people learn about themselves and build better connections with the people around them.
Yeah. Is it, I guess, from an organization size, have you found that it doesn't matter the size of organization? I mean, it's going to help anybody, or is there really kind of that range that really you've seen a lot of success based on how many managers and what the leadership structure is?
Yeah, great question, David. I would say that, you know, anybody could pick up a book and read it. You know, there's millions of books out there. The way this system is designed is typically most of my clients have one or two people in HR. They're usually privately held. They have a leader who truly believes you can develop people, and they
Yep.
care about their team members.
Yep.
My business is 100% referral. I'll just be open with that.
Yeah.
It almost is all, it's been referrals since 2013. People say, hey, you got to talk to Angela. And that's how all my business comes to me. And I
Yeah.
love that because most people are aligned with my values, which
Yep.
is I really care about people and I want to see people and organizations grow. That's my passion and my purpose. And so I would say that those are typically the organizations that I work with. I think the larger organizations, they have a lot of money to spend on learning and development resources and maybe really high paid outside speakers and
Yep.
all those other things that I experienced when I worked for large organizations. And I
Right.
got a lot of value out of a lot of that. But my goal is really to help those organizations that are smaller. I've got organizations I work with have 4 people. I have ones that have hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
So it's those organizations that I feel like they really would benefit.
Yeah. I think a lot of organizations that are smaller may not make it as much of a priority, and they won't budget for this kind of stuff. They just assume people are going to come to work and get along, and you won't ever see someone quit because of how they were managed, and you have engaged employees, and it's like a perfect scenario, but it like never happens that way, right? Like it's always, well, not always, but there's probably times where people come to you and say, hey, I've got a problem.
Mhm.
Now I need to fix it. I need you to help me fix it versus, hey, we don't have problems yet, but we want to be proactive and get out in front of them as they might happen as we grow or go through acquisitions, whatnot. So I think the more proactive a company can be is super important.
It's so important. In those organizations, most of the people are wearing multiple hats.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so you get in a large organization, and I've worked for privately held, I've worked in all different industries, et cetera, with different clients in this consulting. And if
Yeah.
you have a small organization, you're wearing lots of hats.
Yeah.
And so to expect that someone's going to be able to juggle all these hats and then be a great manager and never encounter any of interpersonal issues that they might need some help with,
Yep.
I'm sorry, it doesn't happen. And so, yeah, I mean, the kind of the clients that call me are almost always those folks that
Yeah.
recognize that, people challenges are real and they want to be proactive and work with them to help their team members because, you lose somebody and they're wearing all these different hats. I mean, that's an expensive replacement, right?
Yep. Absolutely. I wanted to bring this up before I forgot. I know we had mentioned before we went on live, but having a personal brand statement is something that I've developed over the last few months for myself. Just everything I'm involved in. My wife and I own a business, small business together, and I do a lot of projects on HR with payroll partners. And so just a personal brand statement that I created was to create positive and meaningful experiences that inspire, uplift, and make a lasting impact on individuals. I'm assuming a lot of people in HR have a similar statement of some sort to try to help others and support them within their organization. So do you have any kind of personal brand statement or something that kind of aligns with that?
Yeah, I think mine is all about helping people and organizations grow.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
really what my life mission is. And,
Yeah.
I do volunteer work as well, get involved in a lot. I do some angel investing. I work with entrepreneurs. Even in my local church, like all these things. And what I truly feel like my purpose is helping people and organizations grow. And I think that's my statement.
Yeah. I think people will always need that. Anybody can start a business. I think we've seen that, even just different kinds of businesses, from entrepreneurship, with just even some young professionals that are finding ways to have a service or some kind of company. Like they don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to run a business, right? So like, how are they learning it? So like, what you do in your day-to-day work, I think is so important and so helpful, and just I think a lot of organizations don't focus on it enough, and so they have problems. They have turnover. They have people that leave because of the culture and the way they're managed. And so the more you can focus on that and make it a part of your budget and
Mhm.
find the right strategy to help your organization. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be very specific, and that's why I think you can dive into it and get a better understanding of what the company needs and how they can create a program. So I know the upcoming program that we wanted to also mention was your mastermind series coming up in July. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, it starts in a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I came up with this idea because I had a couple women ask me if they could do the Superpower Pyramid. And I said, well, we learn best in groups, so let's get together and do it. And so I've got 6 women signed up so far, and they're absolutely amazing women. And it starts on July 10th. And I think many of them are getting their company to support them.
Yeah.
It's $11.98 if you come by yourself, but I have a really big special, which is $5.99 if you bring a friend each. So a lot of us love buy one get one, so it's a buy one get one free because I really think that can be helpful. It also includes all your assessments. It includes group coaching. It includes some videos and a lot of different pieces of that. And so I'm really excited about it. We start July 10th. It'll be on Thursdays. So just take your lunch hour. I was talking to somebody over the weekend who's planning on doing it, and she's saying, I'm just going to extend my lunch hour on Thursdays for 6 weeks,
Yeah.
11:30 to 1 Eastern. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that, David. I'm excited about it. Like I said, I work a lot with organizations and within the same organization, but this one, it'll be a cross section of folks, just women who are interested in developing themselves and who want to really take that next step to develop their careers.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if somebody wants to connect with you on LinkedIn about the program or send you an email, what's the best way to contact you?
Find me on LinkedIn for sure. Angela Crawford on LinkedIn. You'll see me out there quite a bit. And I
Awesome.
definitely would love to chat with anyone. Like I said, I think that leadership it's a huge responsibility. And if you think about it, we're all leading ourselves every day. And sometimes that's the hardest job I have. It's, it's just
Right?
leading myself, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's what's a lot of fun when I get to talk to people and especially in these types of organizations that I really enjoy helping, which are those, that are smaller, they're growing, they're going through the growing pains. They want to grow. And what happens a lot of times is we hire people like ourselves. It's our typical bias, right?
Yep.
And so that's why I think the Superpower Pyramid can be very helpful, along with a lot of other things. I joke with the folks that are in some of my workshops, and I said, I'm like giving you another tool for your leadership garage, but this one you got to pull out in
Yeah.
this situation or that situation. And so, and I'm like, and you have to actually use these tools, not the ones that are in your real garage.
That's right. Yeah, you got to put them to work for
Yeah,
sure. So,
definitely.
no, this has been great. I really appreciate your time coming on and sharing a little bit about this and your work. And I think what you're doing is very important. And best of luck on your future projects. And certainly, hopefully, we can stay, connected and everything. And if I hear anybody out there that's needing some of your work, I will send them your way because I know there's a lot of companies that need your work for sure. So this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to add before we get off?
I just want to thank you, David. I
Yeah.
just really enjoy the time that you spend putting this together and your passion for people and your passion for HR. And we have to support one another and we have to get ideas out there and really help our team members grow and develop. And I just want to thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me here, for listening to my story, and for really sharing the passion that we both have for helping people be more successful.
Yeah. No,
So
I
thank
appreciate that.
you.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun to meet and connect with people like yourself. So I always enjoy it, and I learn every time I have somebody on. I always rewatch them and listen and try to find things that I didn't catch the first time, because there's a lot behind the scenes that no one sees other than me. So I'm doing all of that myself, and so trying to keep everything in order. Sometimes I go back and rewatch something, and I catch something wasn't fully grasping the first time. So anyway, appreciate your time to come on, and hope you stay nice and cool in this hot June that we have going on right now in the Midwest. But hopefully we'll talk soon, and appreciate your time. And we have some fun, exciting, hilarious guests coming up in July. So I cannot wait to announce that. But the next one will be in a couple of weeks, July 7th. So tune in for all of the information. I did post it on LinkedIn. It's with a comedian that does HR comedy. So look out for that. But appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. You take care. Bye now.
See ya.